Dr. Kim Mina walked slowly toward the big stage at Kepler Station. Her hands shook a little as she carried her papers. Around her, hundreds of alien beings filled the huge room. Some looked like walking crystals that made musical sounds when they moved. Others were like floating clouds of colored gas. The third group had metal parts mixed with their bodies and glowing lights for eyes. She had traveled many light years to get here. This was the most important science meeting in the galaxy. Every smart being from every advanced world came here to share their discoveries. Mina was the first human ever invited to speak. "Today I will tell you about how humans store information," she said into the microphone. Her voice echoed in the large room. "We use something called paper." She held up a thin white sheet. It looked very plain next to all the amazing technology around her. The crystal beings started making sounds like wind chimes. The translation computer in her ear told her they were laughing. The gas clouds changed to a deep purple color. Her research notes said this meant they thought something was funny in a mean way. "Paper is made from trees," Mina continued, trying to stay calm. "We mix it with water and press it flat. Then we can write on it with ink or print words on it with machines." A tall crystal being spoke up. Its voice sounded like beautiful music, but the words were not kind. "How interesting that humans still use such old methods. We store all our information in quantum light patterns inside our crystal bodies. One small crystal can hold more information than your entire planet's libraries." The gas cloud beings whispered to each other, creating swirls of different colors. One of them floated closer to the stage. "Our people keep knowledge in the air itself," it said through a special speaker. "We can store the history of 1,000 worlds in a single breath of gas. And you scratch marks on dead plants." The metal beings with computer parts in their heads barely looked up from their glowing screens. Finally, one spoke in a flat, robot-like voice. "This explains why humans are still so far behind the rest of us. While we keep information in our minds and connect to the great computer networks of space, you waste time with primitive materials." Mina felt her face get hot, but she kept talking. "Paper has benefits that digital storage does not have," she said. "It needs no electricity. It works even when computers break. Some paper documents from Earth are over 1,000 years old and still perfectly readable." This made the aliens laugh even harder. The crystals chimed like broken bells. The gas beings turned bright orange, which meant they found something very amusing. "The computer beings just ignore her completely now. When all your fancy technology fails, paper will still work," Mina said, raising her voice a little. "If our technology fails, then we have already failed as a civilization," said the lead crystal being. "Only primitive species need such simple backup methods." Dr. Park Jahun, Mina's research partner, sat in the front row. He looked worried as he watched the other beings make fun of their work. They had spent 3 years studying paper and preparing this presentation. Now everyone was treating it like a joke. "Let me show you something," Mina said. She pulled out an old book from Earth. Its pages were yellow with age, but every word was still clear. This book is 500 years old. It has survived wars, floods, and fires. It needs no power source, no special equipment to read. Anyone with eyes can understand it. A young crystal being called out. "We have backups of our backups stored in quantum space. Our information is perfectly safe. And if something happens to quantum space?" Mina asked. The room fell quiet for a moment. Then the laughter started again, louder than before. "Nothing can destroy quantum storage," said the gas being. "It exists in dimensions beyond physical reality. Our neural networks span entire star systems," added a computer being. "We have redundancy beyond anything your simple mind can imagine." Mina tried one more time. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the strongest ones. Paper doesn't need complex systems to work. It doesn't depend on networks or power grids or quantum dimensions. It just works." But nobody was listening anymore. The aliens were talking among themselves about her amusing presentation and quaint human customs. Some were already getting up to leave. As Mina finished her speech, only polite clapping filled the room. She could hear aliens talking to each other about the funny paper lady and Primitive Human Technology. Dr. Lido Hyen, another human scientist, recorded everything on his electronic tablet. At least someone thought this was worth saving. Within hours, videos of Mina's presentation were being shared across the galaxy's communication networks. The title most aliens gave it was Human Shows Off Ancient Storage Method, followed by laughing symbols. Comment threads filled with jokes about humans still living in the Stone Age. That night, Mina sat in her small room on the space station, looking at her research papers. Maybe they were right. Maybe paper was just an old, useless technology that had no place in the modern galaxy. But something deep in her mind told her that one day, these same aliens who laughed at her simple paper might need it more than they could ever imagine. 3 months had passed since the embarrassing presentation. Dr. Kim Mina was arranging her paper files in her small research station when loud alarm sounds filled the air. Her computer screen flashed red with emergency messages from all over the galaxy. Dr. Lido Hyen ran into her office, his face white with fear. Mina, something terrible is happening. The twin suns near Kepler Station just exploded with the biggest solar flare anyone has ever seen. Mina looked at her main viewing screen. News reports were coming in from 12 different star systems. The solar flare had been so powerful that it created electromagnetic waves that traveled through space faster than anyone thought possible. These waves were bouncing off communication networks and getting stronger as they moved. All the crystal beings' quantum computers are breaking down, said Commander Choi Hyok from the nearest military base. His voice sounded worried through the radio. The Zephyrian home planet has gone completely dark. We can hear bits and pieces of distress calls, but their fancy quantum storage systems appear to be completely destroyed. Dr. Yang Subin was the smartest physics scientist at Kepler Station. She appeared on the video screen looking tired and scared. It's not just the crystal people. The gas cloud beings who store information in their air are having problems too. Their gas giant planets can't keep the right air pressure needed to hold their data. And the computer brain people, their metal implants are shutting down so fast that some are getting brain damage. Mina watched in shock as one civilization after another reported the same terrible news. The most advanced species in the galaxy, the same ones who had laughed at her simple paper just 3 months ago, were suddenly cut off from thousands of years of stored knowledge. What about our human systems? Do Hyen asked, looking at his electronic tablet with worry. Our electronic things are broken too, Hyok replied sadly. But the damage seems to match how complicated the technology is. Simple electronics are starting to work again, but anything using quantum technology... He shook his head. As if proving his point, Do Hyen's tablet screen went black and died completely. The lights in their research station became dim as emergency power systems turned on. Through the communication system, more bad news kept coming. On the Crystal People's homeworld, their beautiful cities were starting to fall apart because no one could remember how to fix them. All the repair information had been stored in quantum computers that were now broken. The gas cloud people were even worse off. Their entire civilization lived on planets made of gas, and they controlled everything through air pressure computers. Without these computers, their cities were literally falling apart as the gas escaped into space. We're getting emergency calls from the Nethari Collective, reported Dr. Song Minji from Haven Colony. They're begging for help. Their people are dying because they can't control their atmosphere anymore. The computer brain people face a different but equally scary problem. Their metal implants had stored most of their memories and knowledge. When the implants shut down to prevent brain damage, many of them forgot how to do basic things like operate their spaceships or even cook food. The Corvin are requesting immediate assistance, came another report. Half their population can't remember how to perform basic life functions. Their cybernetic implants held everything from personal memories to professional skills. As the hours passed, the situation got worse. Spaceships floated helplessly through space because their navigation computers were broken. Hospitals couldn't help patients because all medical records were stored digitally. Farms stopped producing food because the automatic systems failed. The same alien species who called humans primitive were now facing their first dark age in over 10,000 years. Planets that had been centers of learning and culture were now struggling just to keep their people alive. But in Mina's small office, something amazing was happening. She looked around at her walls, which were covered with physical books and paper documents. Her filing cabinets were full of printed research papers. Her complete life's work was stored in dozens of bound volumes that needed no electricity to read. Dohayan, she said slowly, a small smile appearing on her face for the first time in months. I think our primitive paper is about to become the most valuable thing in the galaxy. Outside her window, she could see other human settlements. Unlike the alien worlds that had gone dark, human colonies still had lights. Their simple technology was recovering from the electromagnetic damage. And most importantly, their libraries full of physical books were completely unaffected. News reports continued to flood in. The Crystal people were offering to trade entire star systems for basic engineering manuals. The gas cloud beings were promising territorial rights in exchange for agricultural information. The computer brain people were desperately asking for any medical knowledge that wasn't stored digitally. All of this knowledge existed in human libraries, printed on simple paper that everyone had laughed at just 3 months before. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations were about to learn that sometimes the oldest solutions are the most reliable ones. 2 weeks had passed since the great electromagnetic disaster began. Dr. Park Jahun sat in the Emergency Command Center, reading reports that came in from human settlements across the affected area. Each report painted a darker picture of what was happening to the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. The computer brain people can't help their sick anymore, said Dr. Song Minji through a crackling radio from Haven Colony. Their hospitals are completely lost. They're trying to do surgery without knowing anything about their patients. 3 big hospitals have already asked us if we have any medical books, printed medical books that they can borrow. On New Seoul, Professor Han Wuzing had received a direct communication from the Crystal Council. These were the same crystal beings who had made fun of Dr. Kim Mina's paper presentation just months ago. They're offering us whole planets if we give them basic engineering books, he said, his voice full of disbelief. Printed engineering books. Their beautiful crystal cities are starting to break and fall down because they can't remember how to fix them. The most desperate call came from the gas cloud people. Their representative spoke through an emergency air transmitter that barely worked. The voice was weak and full of fear as it talked to Dr. Kong Jisu. Our food growing systems have completely failed. Billions of our people will die from hunger. We know humans keep physical farming records. Please help us. We will give you entire star systems for simple instructions on how to grow crops and take care of soil. Back on Kepler Station, Mina worked from her small research station, which had now become the unofficial center of galactic knowledge sharing. Her paper files, once dismissed as old-fashioned curiosities, had become the most valuable resource in known space. The scale of the disaster was beyond anything anyone had imagined. Entire civilizations that had existed for thousands of years were collapsing within weeks. The Crystal People's quantum cities were developing cracks because no one could access the maintenance schedules. The gas cloud people were losing atmosphere on dozens of worlds as their pressure control systems failed. We need every human settlement to start copying information by hand, Mina told the emergency council meeting. Lee Do-Hyan is organizing teams to handwrite essential information. Dr. Bae Suho has agreed to lead the medical copying project. We need farming guides, basic manufacturing instructions, fundamental science principles, everything that keeps civilization working. Commander Choi Hyok, whose military training had always included backup paper systems, looked amazed by the situation. The greatest irony is that we're the only ones who kept backup systems. While they made their technology perfect, we kept the old ways alive just in case. Through the static field communication channels, more reports arrived every hour. On the Crystal homeworld, massive spires that had stood for millennia were beginning to collapse. No one remembered the engineering principles needed to support such massive structures because all that knowledge had been stored in quantum matrices that were now destroyed. The computer brain people faced perhaps the most tragic situation. Many of them had become so dependent on their implants that they had stopped learning things naturally. When the implants shut down, skilled engineers forgot how to build things. Doctors couldn't remember medical procedures. Even parents forgot how to take care of their children. It's like watching entire civilizations become children again, reported Dr. O. Sungmin from the outer colonies. They have to relearn everything from the beginning, but they don't have teachers because everyone depended on the same broken systems. The economic collapse was just as severe. Trade routes that had existed for thousands of years stopped working because navigation computers were dead. Manufacturing centers went silent because the robots couldn't access their programming. Even simple things like food distribution networks failed because everything had been automated. But the most heartbreaking reports came from the educational systems. Schools across dozens of worlds had closed because all learning materials had been digital. Children who had been taught through direct brain interfaces suddenly found themselves unable to learn anything. Teachers who had relied on quantum knowledge databases couldn't even remember basic lessons. We're seeing the complete breakdown of knowledge transfer, explained Dr. Lim Yuna, who specialized in educational systems. These civilizations became so advanced that they forgot how to teach and learn in simple ways. Now they're paying the price. Meanwhile, in human settlements, something remarkable was happening. Paper mills that had been considered outdated industries were working day and night. Printing presses that had been stored in museums were brought back into service. People who knew how to write by hand became as valuable as spaceship pilots. The irony was not lost on anyone. Humanity, considered the most primitive civilization in the galaxy, was now the keeper of all essential knowledge. The same paper that had been mocked was now more precious than the rarest metals. Young humans found themselves in the incredible position of teaching ancient alien civilizations basic skills. Human children were showing thousand-year-old beings how to write with pens. Human farmers were explaining crop rotation to species that had automated agriculture for millennia. As Mina looked out the stars from her station, she realized that the galaxy was experiencing its first true dark age in over 10,000 years. But in the darkness, human paper and human knowledge were becoming the light that would guide everyone back to civilization. 6 months after the Great Collapse, Dr. Kim Mina stood in what used to be a Crystal People's quantum laboratory. Now it had been turned into the galaxy's biggest hand-copying center. Hundreds of beings from dozens of different species worked side by side, carefully writing important information on paper using tools that humans had designed. "We understand the irony now," said Christek Harmony, the former quantum engineer who had openly laughed at Mina's presentation months ago. The crystal being's body had been changed with simple light sensors because quantum improvements were still too dangerous to use. "We spent thousands of years making perfect information storage, only to learn that we had created our own weakness." Dr. O. Sungmin managed a huge operation from what used to be the station command center. Paper and writing supplies had to be moved to 47 different worlds. "We've built paper-making factories on 47 worlds," he reported to the Emergency Galactic Council. Human advisors like Dr. Lim Yuna are teaching tree farming methods to species that haven't worked with living materials in centuries. The change was amazing to see. The gas cloud people had developed ways to make paper-like storage materials from their atmospheric gases. They created documents that could exist in their natural air environment. The computer brain people had built huge physical libraries alongside their slowly recovering digital networks. Cybernetic scribes carefully kept handwritten copies of important systems. Dr. Jang Kyung-go led the education program and was amazed by the cultural exchange happening. "We're not just sharing our storage technology, we're teaching the entire galaxy about having backup plans, about the wisdom of keeping simple backup systems alongside complex ones." Young human teachers like Park Seri found themselves in the unprecedented position of teaching ancient civilizations basic skills. "I'm teaching a 10,000-year-old crystal being how to hold a pen," she laughed during one of her reports. Their species had evolved beyond physical touch centuries ago, but now they're learning again the value of direct, simple creation. The economic change was equally dramatic. Human worlds that had previously been considered backward frontier colonies became important trading centers. Paper, ink, and writing tools cost as much as quantum processors used to cost. On the Crystal homeworld, something beautiful was happening. The Crystal people were combining their natural abilities with human paper technology. They created stunning crystal paper composite materials that could store information both in quantum patterns and in simple written form. When one system failed, the other would still work. "Look at this," said Crystal Engineer Vex High, showing Mina a sheet that sparkled like a jewel but had human writing clearly visible on its surface. "We can store quantum data in the crystal structure, but if that fails, the paper writing remains readable forever. It's the best of both our technologies." The gas cloud people made equally impressive innovations. They learned to create atmospheric papers that floated in their gas giant homes, visible as writing made of controlled air currents. When their electronic systems failed, they could still read these atmospheric documents by changing their body colors to match the air patterns. "We have forgotten that information can be beautiful," said Atmosphere Keeper Nelwo, whose gaseous form swirled around floating paper documents. "Your human writing is not just functional, it's an art form. We're rediscovering creativity we lost when everything became automated." Even the computer brain people, who had been the most dependent on technology, were finding unexpected benefits in the paper revolution. They established vast archives maintained by specially trained scribes. But more importantly, they were learning to use their natural brains again instead of relying only on implants. "My memory has improved since I started writing things down by hand," admitted cyber scholar Techmore, whose metal implants now serve mainly as backup to his renewed natural abilities. "The physical act of writing helps my biological brain remember information better than just downloading it ever did." Dr. Kim Mina traveled between worlds, helping coordinate the massive knowledge transfer project. On every planet she visited, she saw the same thing. Civilizations that had forgotten how to do things simply were rediscovering the joy and reliability of basic methods. The transformation went beyond just storage systems. The crystal people were learning carpentry and metalworking again. The gas cloud people were experimenting with solid materials for the first time in millennia. The computer brain people were teaching their children to learn naturally instead of through implants. "We're not going backward," explained Dr. Park Jahun during a galactic conference call. "We're building hybrid systems that combine the best of advanced technology with the reliability of simple methods." Every major civilization now has both quantum storage and paper backups. The cultural impact was perhaps most significant. Species that had barely interacted for centuries were now working together daily. Human teachers worked alongside ancient alien scholars. Children from different worlds learned to write together in the same classrooms. But the most important change was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that true advancement meant building on reliable foundations, not abandoning them. Progress didn't mean replacing everything old with something new. It meant making sure that when the new things failed, the old reliable methods would still be there. As Mina watched a young crystal being carefully practice human handwriting, she realized they weren't just saving civilization. They were making it stronger and more beautiful than it had ever been before. 2 years later, Dr. Kim Mina walked onto the same stage where she had once been embarrassed and laughed at. But the feeling in the rebuilt Galactic Science Symposium could not have been more different. The huge room was packed with more beings than it could normally hold. Some attended in person, while others joined to the new hybrid communication systems that kept both digital and physical backups of everything. "Honored colleagues," she began, and this time the word honored truly meant something. "Today I want to talk about what we have all learned about real technological progress." The audience that had once made fun of her work now listened carefully to every word. Behind her, big screens showed the amazing transformation of galactic civilization. Crystal cities now had beautiful paper-crystal combination archives. Gas cloud libraries existed alongside their air-based storage systems. Computer brain networks were backed up by huge physical archives maintained by dedicated writers. Dr. Park Jahun, who now served as Director of Galactic Information Safety, presented the numbers that proved everything had changed. Emergency response times got 340% better when important information stayed available during system failures. Medical results improved greatly when doctors could access patient histories, whether digital systems worked or not. Farm production became stable across all affected systems once physical farming guides became available. Commander Choi Hyok, representing the new Galactic Safety Council, added more good news. Every major civilization now keeps hybrid storage systems. The Crystal Council has started the Quantum Paper Archive program. The Gas Cloud Collective has developed atmospheric writing techniques. Even the computer brain people have created beautiful handwriting traditions alongside their cybernetic efficiency systems. But the most meaningful moment came when Christek Harmony, the same crystal being who had mocked Mina's original presentation, took the stage. Dr. Kim Mina's research saved our entire civilization. They said, their crystal body resonating with real gratitude. We learned that advancement without backup plans is not advancement at all. It's a beautiful weakness waiting for disaster. The standing applause lasted for several minutes. But Mina found herself thinking of all the human librarians, teachers, and craftspeople who had quietly kept the primitive skills that saved the galaxy. Dr. Lee Do-Hyen, Dr. Song Minji, Professor Han Wuzing, and hundreds of others who had turned humanity's supposed weakness into galaxy strength. Young Park Seri, now a famous teacher across 12 star systems, spoke next. The most beautiful thing we discovered is that teaching simple skills brought different species together. Crystal children and human children now learn to write sitting next to each other. Gas cloud younglings practice alongside computer brain students. We're not just sharing knowledge. We're creating friendships between species that had barely talked for centuries. Dr. Yang Soo-bin, the physicist who had first reported the crisis, presented her latest research. We now understand that the electromagnetic disaster was not a one-time event. Similar solar flares happened every few thousand years. Previous civilizations probably collapsed the same way, but we have no records because they lost all their digital knowledge. Only civilizations with physical backups could survive and remember what happened. The audience grew quiet as they realized how close they had come to complete destruction. Without human paper and the knowledge stored on it, entire species would have disappeared from history. This is why we're establishing the Galactic Heritage Project, announced Dr. Kong Jisoo. Every piece of important knowledge will now be stored in at least 3 different ways: digital for efficiency, quantum for advanced applications, and physical for permanent backup. No civilization will ever again be vulnerable to total knowledge loss. The project was already showing amazing results. The Crystal People had created the most beautiful libraries anyone had ever seen, with information stored in crystal matrices, quantum fields, and handwritten books all in the same building. The Gas Cloud People had developed floating archives that existed in 3 different atmospheric layers for triple redundancy. Even more impressive was the cultural renaissance happening everywhere. Species that had become completely dependent on automation were rediscovering manual skills. Art, crafts, and handmade objects became popular again. Children learned to create things with their hands, instead of just commanding computers to do everything. We thought progress meant replacing the old with the new, said Elder ZYX Hall, a 10,000-year-old crystal being who had lived through the entire technological evolution of their species. Now we understand that true progress means building new things on top of strong, reliable foundations. The newest innovations should make the old methods stronger, not replace them completely. As Mina concluded her presentation, she held up a simple piece of paper, the same type that had once been dismissed as worthless. But now everyone could see the tiny crystal threads woven into it and the slight shimmer that showed quantum enhancement. It was still paper, but it had been improved with the best of alien technology. Sometimes the most advanced solution is also the simplest one, she said to the completely silent audience. Sometimes wisdom lies not in complexity, but in understanding that the best systems are those that work when everything else fails. The galaxy had learned its lesson. True progress meant honoring the past while building the future. And sometimes the most important knowledge was the kind that could survive in the simple scratch of ink on paper, no matter what disasters the universe might bring.